Hi guys, hope you're having a good weekend. A bit of an update in this video. Charlotte, as you know, was up for the Bonker Award for Campaign Video of the Year. If you don't know what the Bonkers are, they are the British Online Creator Awards. Unfortunately, she didn't win, but we were incredibly humbled to have been nominated. It was the video with Charlotte and Marcus Butler for Stand Up to Cancer, which you can find on Charlotte's channel if you look in the videos. So yeah, we're not really bitter about that at all, because I think we're so amazed that Charlotte got nominated, given we share quite a small community of subscribers compared to, say, the other nominees who had millions. So yeah, for all you guys, all 4,000 and a bit of you, thank you for making the channel what it is today and seeing us get that nomination for Charlotte.
Yeah, so we're very pleased, thank you for that. On our website we've got an up and coming art auction coming up, so I'd appreciate if anybody would like to take a look at Charlotte's bag. I shall leave the link to that below, straight to the charity website. Yes, charity is going from strength to strength, slowly but surely.
Yeah, so if we put those links in the description box below, you can have a look at them and share them for any people that might be into art, and Christmas is coming up. So there's a potential there to buy gifts from that auction, and all those proceeds will go to Charlotte's bag.
And also there is something else about if you're shopping online, you can sign up to Charlotte's bag. It's absolutely free, and we will get donations as you shop. Everything is on the website, as we said. I was just saying to Miles a minute ago, I would just like to say that I think at this time of year it's really, really important to think of people that maybe are not looking forward to Christmas. There's a couple of people that I can think of, Amanda and Goulet, who lost their children at the beginning of the year and are finding it very difficult, and Goulet was her only child, which makes it doubly worse. And also thinking of a friend up in Scotland and his son Duncan. So I think it's just nice to remember people that maybe are not looking forward to Christmas as much as everybody else this year. And I think Mars will now leave me, and I'm just going to continue a little bit with what happened with Charlotte just up to when she actually had her biopsy last October.
Yeah, I think it's important, just before I go and allow you to do that, is I know you find it very difficult because Christmas in this country is very prematurely celebrated in a lot of ways. You see everything in the shops, come late September, so months in advance. And I think it would be nice just to ask for, with those people you've mentioned in mind, just for people generally to be aware, as we were saying, that for a lot of people, Christmas is a very sensitive time.
As I said before, it's even hard going to the supermarket and hearing all the songs which Charlotte liked. Obviously I still have to do that, but I do find it very, very difficult, and as Miles will tell you, I broke down only a couple of days ago when we'd just gone up to get a few things. It was just a little bit too much. But we will celebrate Christmas, because that's what Charlotte would have wanted us to do.
Yes.
Hi, well, I'll pick up more or less from where I left off last week. I have got notes because there is quite a bit to try and remember, and I can't remember it all. So on the 29th of September 2015, we were hoping that we were going to get, or Charlotte was going to get her biopsy imminently. Again, we were then told that we had to go on the adult ward at King's, which neither of us were keen on. She'd never been in an adult ward, even though she was just 18. That was quite difficult. Her platelets were continually low. They could not do the biopsy because if there was a bleed, it would lead to huge complications. So her platelets were taken daily. On the 23rd, we were still waiting for a bed. Her eye was sticking badly by this time, so we knew things were progressing at a fairly fast rate. She also had a bad pain inside her left ear. Still waiting for a bed. On the 24th of September, Charlotte took matters into her own hands, as only she could do, and started phoning people up and asking could things be brought forward a little bit. And a couple of days later, they looked behind her eyes. Unfortunately, there was no pressure there, because that was a huge indication that things were really progressing fast if there was again build-up of pressure. The headaches were getting far worse. On the 26th of September, I remember it very well, she wore a beautiful red dress, and we had some charity awards up in London, and she won first prize, and for being, I think, just for doing as much campaigning as she had done. She looked stunning that evening, so that just shows that she was still managing to get out and about a little bit. However, the next day she had I'm going to have to read this off here. She had a severe headache across the front of her head, wasn't feeling well, and she had more pain on the lower left side behind her ear, on her skull, and her left eye was more closed. She was feeling a lot more dizzy, swaying a lot more, and so we had more and more blood results. She was very stressed and very scared. And Charlotte always said to me, "You'll know if there's something wrong because I'll tell you that I'm worried." And I used to say to her, "You worried?" And she said no. But this time she said she was very worried. So on the 29th of September, we went up to the Marsden to see her consultant, and he said that indeed the tumour was obviously growing and things were a lot worse. She was very upset also about her weight gain. Her lips and her feet started feeling numb on her left side, and the biopsy was cancelled again until the 8th of October. On the 1st of October 2015 she became very unwell. Her headache was getting worse, sickness was getting far worse. We went to the local hospital and ambulanced up to the Marsden to see our consultant, who said that indeed the symptoms were progressing. On the 3rd of October we were still at the hospital, and we finally got the go-ahead that the biopsy was going to take place on Sunday the 4th. We waited most of the day on the Saturday for the ambulance to turn up, and it did eventually turn up in the evening at 7:17. We were ambulanced up to King's College Hospital. We were very tired, very emotional, and I remember it very well, arriving there in a strange place, coming from a small local hospital, and we sat in a waiting area waiting to go through to a room. And we arrived in a small room, and it was in the adult ward, but we had our own room, and they put a mattress on the floor for me, and the registrar came in at 10 o'clock at night and started telling us, obviously they had to warn us that they had to warn us of the risks of having a brain biopsy. And Charlotte and I just, she was in bed, I was sitting next to her holding her hand, we just wept. And I said to the registrar, "I can't listen to this anymore, we just couldn't take any more information in." And she said, "I'm sure the biopsy will be okay, but I just have to warn you of all the effects." And then they said that we needed an MRI, or Charlotte needed an MRI at 2 in the morning. Unfortunately it was cancelled. The next morning, Sunday the 4th of October at 17 minutes to 12, midday, she had her biopsy, and it was a very, very long hour and a half as we paced outside, not knowing what to expect. And we went back in and we saw the neurosurgeon come walking up the corridor, and we said, "How did it go?" And he said it went well. But he said, "I can see it's not normal brain tissue. It wasn't very nice, a jelly-like substance." And we said, "Could it be necrosis?" And he said, "It's just too early to tell, we just don't know." And with that we went to see Charlotte, and my husband went home, and I stayed the night with her. And by 8 o'clock she said, "My eye, I can't move my eye, it's stuck." And as you'll have seen from her other videos, her eye was indeed stuck, and it remained like that until she passed. But even the next morning, on the 5th, she was desperate to get out of bed. And she did get out of bed, and she was so unsteady on her feet. And if you can imagine, on the Saturday she'd been able to walk fairly normally, and then on the after the biopsy she was just clinging on to everything. But she was so determined to get out, and I remember saying to her, "If you read your magazine and you have a big grin, maybe you can get out." And in fact we did manage to get home that day, and then the next morning she was filming for YouTube for Stand Up to Cancer with Marcus Butler. Anyway, next week I'll cover a little more of her journey. It does get more difficult now because it's getting quite raw with what's been going on. But anyway, as we said earlier, if we could just spare a thought for those who are going to find Christmas quite tricky this year. Anyway, thank you for watching and for all your support. Thank you.